All right, welcome everyone. So nice to see such a great turnout. I'm Katie Murphy. I am founder of Knex, the sponsor of this event, and I've got a couple great co-hosts with me that I'll introduce in just a second. But what the heck is Knex? We are a marketplace where we connect vetted fractional executives, everyone from an advisor, coach, consultant, fractional exec, temp to perm leader, you name it, with companies that are scaling, pivoting, maybe need a rescue. And we guarantee that talent because we have a pretty amazing AI matching system. And then we also have some pretty great tools, infrastructure tools, kind of enablement tools for fractionals to create a storefront in about 10 minutes, help with distribution, marketing, kind of you name it, help compete in this noisy space. So we feel pretty strongly that most executives will be fractional in the near future. There are stats out there that say the entire 50% of the entire workforce will be freelance, gig, whatever you want to call it. But another great way to think about fractional is right time, right size leadership. So I'm going to hand it over to, let's start with you, Eric. If you could give a little short intro of yourself, and I'll also make sure I share the storefronts for both Eric and Gus if you want a free consult with them, and then we'll dive into the content for today. Go ahead, Eric, take it away.
Absolutely. Thank you, Katie. Thanks all. Pleasure to be here with you all today. My name's Eric Maida. I am the co-founder and president at MT Growth Partners. And a little bit about myself. I've spent the better part of a decade now in multiple roles, leading growth as an individual contributor as well. Exited several organizations. But really, my background and specialty is around enterprise sales, specifically in learning management, learning experience platforms, human capital management, but really a wide breadth and depth across the spectrum there, working across multiple verticals, multiple industries. And most recently, my partner and I have come together to join forces to stand up MT Growth Partners, where we work in tandem with folks like yourselves to really understand where you are on that stage, that growth journey, as Katie put it. And we work in order to obviously understand your needs, where those gaps might be, but work in a multitude of capacities to really help you create predictable, scalable, and repeatable revenue engines. So I'm based also in New Jersey, northern New Jersey, so just outside of Manhattan here.
Fantastic. Thanks. Gus, take it away.
Thanks, Katie. Hey, everyone. Similar to Eric, I'm in this space of helping founders and early stage technology, business to business companies, figure out how they're going to get paid. Is their product valuable? Who's going to pay them? What are they willing to pay for it? So I operate really sort of that transition point between strategy and operations. So I steer away from being a consultant. I help founders do the actual work, be in the trenches, work around the nuances of revenue generation. As it stands today, I'm an avid student of emerging technologies, busy with an MBA in AI, and being an AI centrist, I love trying technologies that put us all on a superhuman level so we can compete out there in a very, very noisy market. I'm based here in Colorado Springs, in Colorado. And yeah, you can see more about what I do at The Wondering. And very happy to be here today and happy to take any questions you guys may have.
Thank you both so much for joining us. And I know people are going to walk away with some really helpful tools and tricks. And then so we've got a $500 off a fractional engagement to any attendee of today's program. So you can either reach out to me. I'm also going to share the links to the storefronts for both the Knex storefronts for both Eric and Gus. And so they'll make sure that you get that discount should you choose to book with them. We always offer 30-minute free consults at Knex. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing so we can just stare at each other's faces instead and have a nice conversation here. So we got a really great, pin the right people, we got a really great submission that I'd like to invite to speak with us here. Is it pronounced Summit or Sumit? Could
Yeah,
you?
Summit.
Great. Do you mind sharing? I'm happy to read your question, but would you mind sharing a bit of your challenge? And we'd love to help solve that live for you today.
Okay, sure. So we're in the healthcare space. I'm the CEO and founder of Premier Allergy and Asthma, which is an allergy practice based here in Central Ohio. So we have 13 locations. We operate on EOS, so we have a C-suite. Kevin, actually, who's our COO and integrator, he's on the call as well. And when patients come in, because I know there was some sales, like one of the questions was, what issues that do you have like in sales potentially? So one of the hurdles that we're having is when patients come to us with allergy issues, they're usually already pretty bad. Like they've tried like over the counter, like nasal sprays and allergy pills and all that kind of stuff. And one of the really cool things that we have to offer them is something called allergy immunotherapy or allergy shots. You guys might have heard about that, where you can actually take a patient and make them unallergic to the things that they're allergic to. So it's kind of an ace in the pocket that we have. But that comes with time commitment, that comes with cost, especially today in today's day and age. We take all commercial insurances, so patients have high deductibles, and we're finding that we're having a harder time than we were, let's say, 10 years ago when these patients would sign up for allergy immunotherapy. We're having a harder time when we look at that conversion rate. That conversion rate seems to be dropping. So it's kind of an issue that we've gone about, like doing education with our doctors, telling our front desk different ways to present it, kind of having a unified message. But we still haven't been able to quite solve it. So when I saw this post on LinkedIn, or sorry, in our EO needs and leads page, I thought, okay, let me sign up and let me at least see if you guys could potentially be a resource. We've thought about like hiring an outside like sales organization. I know like a lot of like plastic surgeons and dermatologists have like outside organizations that come in and have a whole methodology to it. But I don't know if we're quite there yet as far as time commitment and like financial commitment to that. So that's kind of we're trying to figure it out ourselves, but still, haven't kind of quite gotten there. Kevin, I don't know if you have anything else to add. Anyways, that's all.
Sorry, yeah, finding the mute button there. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. No, I think you covered it really well. I think the thing that I might just emphasize is that because we're in the medical field and because it's a little bit different than aesthetics. So someone that's coming in for, let's say, they want to fix their nose or some blemish on there, something that's cosmetic. They're already kind of pre-sold on this idea that they're going to have to spend money on it. So for us, a big part of it is how our providers kind of walk that line of being someone that's a health provider, but that's also a salesperson. Mm-hmm. So having them understand and really get that ultimately we want, we're trying to provide a service to these patients that makes them feel better, but that we also sometimes have to push them in a little bit of a direction from a sales perspective, appropriately so. We don't believe that 100% of our patients need immunotherapy, but the ones that we think do, we need our providers to understand how to do it and to do it better.
Understood.
Great stuff, and so glad you're able to see my post there.
Yeah.
From Entrepreneurs Organization, so a wonderful organization that I'm a part of, so highly recommend. Who wants to take it first? Eric, Gus?
Eric, yeah, if you're okay, I'll jump in.
Please, please start. Yeah.
I have two questions for you. The first one is, who's your actual client? Is it the provider or the person in the street? Or is it both? And the second question is, if it's both, why do they buy from you as opposed to from somebody else?
Yeah. So I think the answer is when you say provider, it's the doctors, but I think it's the person that walks in off the street that needs that service.
Mhm.
And we have what we consider like our key differentiators, like as far as like number of offices, our hours are more convenient than anyone else's hours. We have weekend hours. We have transparency in billing, so we provide them ahead of time, which no other allergy office does, like kind of a rundown of how much they will owe and things like that. So I think we do have like some like key differentiators that we try to highlight, which I think gives like a better like customer service to those patients as opposed to going to allergy practice X, Y, and Z.
Right, thank you for that. I'll leave you with a few thoughts.
Yeah.
I clearly don't have answers to your challenges because there's many things to unpack, but I'll leave you with a few thoughts just to give an indication how I think about a challenge like this.
Yeah.
First of all, having an intermediary between you and your actual client creates a lot of complexity. It creates training issues, it creates representation issues. Um, you clearly decided that you can't get away without them. And so my recommendation would be to clearly understand what motivates them to talk about you, and then understand how they interact with your end consumer. That portion is critical. I've been working with a few founders in the past where you have a relationship with your own client out there with your ICP and all that kind of stuff. The moment you put an intermediary in it creates a lot of complexity. It slows down learning. It creates representation issues, etc. So that should be carefully looked at. So just a thought in your environment. And then secondly, maybe a little bit of a harsh comment, but take it in the spirit of where I'm coming from. But the value statements you made, they feel table stakes to me. They feel that somebody else can also claim that without proof. You may have proof, but it feels like a table stakes type of positioning. And so I think very importantly for what you're giving is to get to that one or two things that your customer is telling you, the end customer, is that they buy from you, they can't get it from anybody else, and they will pull you towards them as opposed to you. And that's the whole product market fit. I'm not going to get into all that science and all that elaborate stuff, but I wanted to leave you with those two thoughts for consideration as you review, how this world works. And then I'll hand off to Eric because I'm sure he's got a lot more pearls of wisdom there. But those are the two things I would leave you with to consider.
Yeah. Thank you. Oh, that's helpful.
Perfect. Yeah, thanks, Gus. I don't know that I have a ton more wisdom to share per se, but and I actually have a question for you, Summit and Kevin as well. Is I know you mentioned kind of the edification, the training that's going out there to I guess make sure that there is a coherent, concise message that's going out to
Yeah.
the end patient, right?
Yeah.
Can you walk me through kind of what that looks like today, whether it's a high level talk track or how maybe those providers are positioning that?
Well, I think first of all, it's very fragmented. And I
Okay.
think one of our issues.
Yeah.
I think that there's not alignment because when you first come in, there's a front desk person that checks you in,
Yeah.
and then you go back and there's a nurse that like does your skin testing, and then at the end, the doctor or provider comes in and talks about different. You can do medications versus you can do allergy shots. So I
Hmm.
think that one of the things that we've identified is maybe there's lack of alignment, that everybody should be kind of like marching to the beat, saying the kind of
Yeah.
same thing and kind of, having the same kind of rhetoric. Hey, this is disease modifying. This is, like a reversal of the allergic process. This is a cure. And I don't think we have that right now.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. And I don't know that it will be uh, I don't know, the silver bullet per se, right? I think having that alignment across that life cycle or the patient interaction, I think will be absolutely critical.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think it also can stem upon, and perhaps again, maybe in places or throughout your facilities, maybe that you're already doing this, but kind of shifting that conversation to more of a future state or a vision of what immunotherapy will do for you as
Mm,
opposed to just whether it's over the counter or perhaps medicines that they've done in the past.
right.
I think changing that and giving the patient the concept that this is truly life-changing. This has the power, the ability to allow you to enjoy that springtime for the
Right.
fullest. It's the last one that you're going to spend indoors, and it's for these reasons,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I think going back to your question too, um, it it's interesting, right, in the sense that the drop in conversion may be due to a number of things, right?
Yeah.
Patients are obviously time strapped. They're balancing the immediate friction, okay, maybe they're afraid of needles, their time, the costs associated with that potential of a vague future relief, right? Like, what
Right.
does that look like? I think if you can bring clarity around that, to help them understand that, look, again, this is the preferred route, or this is our recommended option for you, and these are the reasons.
Yeah.
I think that will allow your customers and hopefully allow them to convert much quicker, and also stop them from what we kind of call the cost of inaction, right? They're just here, they're kind of window shopping, they're assessing um, kind of what that looks like and how that fits. But if you show them what 5 years down the road looks like with an asthma-free life
Yeah.
or symptom-free life, I
Yeah.
mean that can be a game changer there. So
That makes a lot
um,
of sense.
hopefully, I don't know. Again, to Gus's point, we don't have all the answers. Would love to delve deeper with you if it makes sense, but
Right.
just a couple of things that come to mind.
No, I mean that makes a lot of sense. With my I have two daughters that are in eighth and ninth grade, and if I say, "Hey, you got to go upstairs and study for this test,"
Yeah.
that's harder. But if I say, "Hey, if this is what you want to do, and this is the college you want to go to, or this is the career that
Yes.
you want to have, you probably got to study for this test." That's much more like futuristic thinking and like goal oriented. I think they're much more likely to do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Kind of having that path and working back from that path, or envisioning
Yeah.
their future state from a patient standpoint. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Cool. That was helpful.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you both.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for the question.
Did you get pretty happy with that
Yeah,
summit?
that's great.
Thanks.
At least gives us some things to think about, but it makes a lot of sense, especially coming from two experts like that. Like, I think that you guys have probably seen that cross industry. So we're just so kind of in our field that sometimes it's hard for us to kind of, see above, but that was helpful. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, if you'd like to talk to either of them more or both of them, please do. I included the links to their
Okay,
Knex
great.
profiles where you can book a free consult directly from their Knex storefront. So
Okay, great.
feel free to go do that. And if you end up hiring anyone, we'll make sure you get your $500 off.
Okay, great.
I shared that in here with everybody. So thank you so much for your time. I wanted to also invite anyone else from the audience. Let me remove this pin here. There we go. If we have any other business owners, founders, or even executives in the office that have in the room here that have specific sales related or revenue related questions, I invite you to speak up, or feel free to ask your question in the chat. But while you think about that, I don't want to put you right on the spot. So think about that for just a couple minutes, and we'll answer a pretty juicy question that I think will be extremely helpful for everyone here in the room. So maybe we have Eric start this time, but for a business owner or a founder like myself who's currently doing everything, marketing, sales, fulfillment, what's the first sales task that they should delegate or think to automate?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think, and especially a lot of the clients that we're engaged with, right? They've seen massive success. Yes, they have the product market fit. They've had early wins, early client acquisition, but they're getting to that point where now they need to actually operate the business, right? And run the more strategic day-to-day pieces. I think that task that they should immediately delegate or automate is that outbound prospecting and that lead research. And I know that may sound straightforward and simple, but a founder's time in particular is going to be best spent on those face-to-face interactions, those human-to-human connections, and not necessarily hunting for contact info or sending cold emails or messages and things like that. I think being able to have, whether it's a trusted partner, a dedicated team, whatever fits within your model and where you are in scaling your organization, I think delegating that list building so that that founder or you're only stepping in when there's a live human that's ready to talk. I think that's going to be a critical piece to really maximize the value that you're bringing to the client, while also simultaneously being conscious of how you're spending your time.
Love it. Gus?
Couldn't agree more, Eric. And maybe I can tell a little story just to support what Eric's saying and provide a bit of nuance to that in the way that I think about it. I'm quite averse to automating anything until the signals are solid and we're really understanding why there's engagement, et cetera, et cetera. So I err on the manual side for a while, but on the delegation side, um, I've had a lot of discussions now with founders and with other business owners that's telling me they're going to incorporate a AI BDR, business development representative, into their business and so on and so forth. And although I have no doubt that that's where the future is going, in my experience, most of these automation tools don't have a personality, and it certainly doesn't have my personality if I look at my target market and who I want to communicate to. So the kind of things I want to delegate as a founder to create more time in my world for high impact work is the follow-up side of things. I agree with Eric, the outbound, the reaching, etc., but the follow-up side, human follow-up. And we can bring the AIs in once we understand these things, but we have a general heuristic in the businesses I work with that if you get a request, an email, a question in your mailbox, you'll answer it the same day. It will never go over to the next day. That discipline of answering immediately, keeping the conversation going, showing respect to your potential customer, your customer, that is still grounds for differentiation. Yeah. And in this world where everybody tries and automate things with mechanical responses that get things wrong, in the early days, if you have 100 customers, you can still do it that way. If you scale more than that, clearly you have to do certain things. So for me, it's about that authenticity being, and as Eric said, you want the founder to be on the call with the people that you want to talk to, of course, but you want to have systems and delegation that make sure the follow-up happens as quickly as you can, and you want to put that founder or any other chief evangelist in the business in a position to have real and authentic conversations with your prospects as you do customer development and as you do the first scaling probably to 1 million, 1.5 million. Just some thoughts for consideration in addition to what Eric has said as well. So yeah.
Yep.
Really helpful. I'm right there right now in my journey. I actually hired a fractional COO from our team who has taken some onboarding meetings for me personally for Nex, and they turn into sales meetings because they're upsell meetings, right? So it's really hearing that's really relevant to me as a founder. So I thought that might be helpful to share. He's a customer too, so that's why I chose him, as he's specific customer from our community, and so he's seen the entire experience from a professional talent perspective, and it's gone pretty well, I would say. But there's definitely some learnings, and people still want to meet with me, right? So, but I only have so much time, so it's probably one of the hardest things I'm trying to figure out right now is which sales meetings for me to take versus maybe delegate to someone else, because I was having about 5 to 7 a day, which great problem to have. But if I'm spending my time on 7 sales calls a day, there's not much else I can really get done besides that and follow up, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So do we have anyone else from the audience that has a sales or revenue challenge or a question for either Eric or Gus? If not, I've got loads of others, but I wanted to give you the floor. I'll give you a second to think about it. Anyone? No problem. Let me dig up the next one I've got. So when you work with founders, how do you actually work with the individual week to week? What do you do? What do you refuse to do? Gus, you want to take this one first?
Sure, yeah. Well, I'll start with the question about what I refuse to do, and in the way that it's framed, the refuse to do is pretty harsh, right? It's like, the way I think about it is like, I don't want to do that because I don't like it, etc. I think my mindset is more, what can somebody else do better? And Eric and I this morning had a great discussion about the kind of work he does and I do. And, we've quickly developed this. Well, you're really good at this, Eric. And, Gus, maybe you're a little better at this, kind of thing. So what I would encourage founders is in this world of fractional environments, right? Make sure that you crystallize what you want and then get people that are energized by doing it for you and can do it really well, right? So we are, as fractionals, in my opinion, moving away from a more generalist world to focusing on the things we can do really well. And it's almost like the people buying for us can componentize the kind of things they do. And if you assemble a good team of people that don't want to grab everything for themselves because they're just revenue hogging, but rather have a real interest in growing your business, then ask them what they're good at and ask them what they're energized by. Getting to the point of how do I work with founders, it's that discipline in the operating cadence, right? So I have long been a big proponent of the Kaizen methodology that was originally developed by Toyota and built a version for myself for revenue. So every week, there's systems in place that capture and trap information, etc. And having a Kaizen to understand, right, what did we do? What failed? Very importantly, what failed? Why did it fail? What's the next experiment we're running? Having the discipline to run those and to be data driven about the market, as opposed to a salesperson saying, "Well, they're ghosting me." Well, that's kind of one of these nails in a coffin of any deal, right? When you get ghosted, right? You should never arrive there. But just the discipline and the operating cadence. And founders are busy. So trap the information in systems, either manually or otherwise, and have real conversations about why did this fail? Why is it working? Do we do more of that, et cetera, et cetera. So again, just I think the discipline of learning and learning fast is super important. Eric, over to you.
Yeah, Gus, I think you hit everything right on the head there. To be quite honest, I'll piggyback off of pretty much everything you said. I think to your first point, right, is really understanding again where our our partners, our founders, the organizations that we work with hand in hand, right? What are they good at? What are they passionate about? What do they want to be doing? And where do they want us to slide in, right? And obviously that can be at least from our side, whether it's fractional or more of a holistic kind of audit of the business, right? And looking into pipeline to forecast, getting the founders themselves board ready, investor ready, whatever the case may be. And then taking that a step further, I think what we've seen success with is being, and I'm sure Gus, you feel the same way, but just being very methodical and crystal clear around the roles and responsibilities and the deliverables in which we're supporting that client, right? So this client comes to the table, they are delivering XYZ to us so that we can be successful, and vice versa. This is what is we're returning in on behalf of that client. So in our framework of MT Growth Partners and what my partner and I do specifically, I mean, and I alluded to this, right? We can work as fractional heads of sales, CRO, you name it, right? But we'll build those playbooks. We can hire the teams, we can audit calls, we can really get into the weeds. And Gus, I know you said that earlier as well, is really living in the trenches, understanding what's working, what's not, iterating quickly, running that new experiment and living and breathing in that data to understand where those gaps are, to really be able to pivot and have that speed and that pace that's required for today's day and age.
Love it. Checking in with the audience in case anyone's got anything. Just jump in the chat. I'll make sure it's covered. But next one. How do you figure out what the constraints truly are that are holding back sales in a business? What do you do when you start with a new client as a fractional sales leader to understand where that constraint is? Who wants to take it?
I think Eric is up first this time around.
Sure. Yeah, we'll just do the round robin. I think that's perfect. So
You got it.
when I step in, right, I'm always thinking with of course, a go-to-market lens, a sales hat on, and kind of look at what we call a drop-off point, right? So we'll look at whether it's the math or the data, the analytics around the time from lead to close, right? If you have plenty of leads, but you're not necessarily sourcing meetings, then there may be a messaging problem, right? If you have those meetings, but there's no second call or follow-up call on the books, then it's likely a discovery problem. And I think we find that at specific stages, there's can be leaks, right? And that is really where we jump in and we get our hands dirty, understanding the nuances in that process and where those leaks might be occurring. And we help to fix that first and help to fix that fast. So that, again, that revenue engine is not hindered by certain leakage or gaps in that process.
The old leaky bucket, Eric.
Exactly.
It's
Exactly. Yeah.
quite an important thing. I spoke recently to a founder that they are expanding in the US, and he showed me the numbers. So their churn rate right now is 55%. So effectively, every time they close a deal, they selling themselves into bankruptcy fundamentally, right? So he wanted to know, what do we do here? And I totally agree with Eric. That leaky bucket has to be stopped. Some of the ways I frame up the problem is very much born in sort of mathematics as well, where you look at first principles. So, I quickly go down to the specific area of problems, but why does it exist? Why does it matter to the clients? Why does it matter to our staff? What is the unit economics around it? Throw all those things out on the table so we can look at them in sort of broad daylight, not as a nebulous thing. The nebulous thing is this founder is telling me I have 55% churn, right? But that doesn't mean anything, right? After how much time? What is your cost of client acquisition? At what level do they churn? What did you do just before the churn? You got to dive into that first principles environment, unpack them, bring the componentry out, and then you can say, well, this looks like a really bad apple. Let's run an experiment here. Let's not make any assumptions. Let's run an experiment. So we want to stop the bucket leaking, completely agree, but then we want to work on how do we realign this thing so it doesn't work, it doesn't happen again, kind of thing. And, in a very past life, I assumed the role of a CEO, a turnaround CEO for a technology company. And one of the things I learned fundamental, as technologists, we're always looking at the system, or can we code something else or something like that. But one of the most fundamental things I found that was problematic in this business was people not understanding what their role is. And, that has got nothing to do with your pipeline or your revenue or anything like that. This is an internal world where you have to make sure if somebody's in customer success, they understand what their role is. And it sounds so simple, but, very often people just don't get it. And that really is something that, is more of an internal focus as opposed to a revenue focus, but so important. And we forget it in these days where we just want to throw technology at everything because we have so much technology. But the human side of it is super important on that perspective. So, yeah.
Oh, good stuff.
Katie, are we tiring you out? Is that what I'm hearing
Or you're
here?
thinking through your
Do you have a sense of overwhelm from me as I
just thinking through
internalize
your
some of this
leaky
Yeah.
stuff?
bucket. Right.
Yeah,
We speak
well,
about these things
maybe.
as if they're easy, right? They're not.
Right. Correct.
Maybe I do. I need one of you to come in and tell me because like Summit said, it's so when you're living it day to day and just trying to stay on top of everything that's commanded at you from a founder or business owner perspective, it's really easy to let that leaky bucket go on for way
Oh
too
yeah,
long.
yeah.
And especially if you don't have really good leading metrics, you have lagging metrics. And I would say churn is a lag metric, not a leading metric, right? So or KPIs. So it's monthly. I with a platform that you have access to all sorts of data. We kind of have a leg up there. But anyway, all right, so I guess the next question is similar in this space. How can you tell if the problem might be a bad salesperson or a bad sales process specifically? We went into that a little bit already, but really, what are the symptoms that you can tell the difference between those two?
Mhm.
Gus,
Wow.
you start.
Eric, you're actually the utter professional salesperson here. Why don't you go first this time around? I'm happy to start, but I think I have more of a
Yeah,
nebulous answer here. So yeah, over to you, Eric.
that's totally fair. And I'm anxious to hear your thoughts too. But I think, and not to oversimplify, but I think consistency is the takeaway, right? I mean, if you have a sales team, you have, let's say, three different people in the process, and they all fail at the same exact stage, then we can take a peek. We can kind of ideate that maybe that process is broken, that funnel is broken, something in there is not connecting, right? If two people are hitting their numbers out of the three, then it's likely a personnel problem. So I think a good process should make an average salesperson look great. And I don't mean to, again, oversimplify, but I think it's also understanding the nuances of whatever sales process, whatever framework you might be using, and how each person adheres to the steps in that process, right? Each person, of course, each salesperson in particular is going to have their own nuances, their own style, but are they getting the necessary information from the prospect, from that client, in order to bridge that gap, in order to bring enough value to book that next meeting, to analyze their decision process, to understand the nuances, what is really obviously keeping that client up at night, right? Is there enough identified pain to say, yeah, we do have a solution, we do have that ability to solve here. So yeah, I think just the takeaway from my end is the consistency, whether it's across the sales team or the process as a whole.
Yeah, spot on, spot on. As you probably used to now, I'm going to provide a story just to illustrate how I think about this. And Katie, it's my story is maybe slightly adjacent to the question, but it does speak to the question. I've had a few conversations recently with people that ask me what do you hire for when you hire salespeople, and you know, I'm a little contrarian when it comes to thinking about bad salespeople or bad processes. And the reason why I believe I'm a little contrarian is that nobody sets out to hire a bad salesperson. Like you have somebody with a great pedigree, they've made Diamond Club, they've gone to Mexico on their incentive trips, they've done great. So here's the story, right? When I scaled a business, a technology business, um, I brought on four salespeople, and these salespeople are all senior, revenue generators. They make quotas, and we're talking about carrying $2 to $3 million, annual sort of targets, just to get on target kind of thing. Brought them into the team, and they got selling, et cetera, et cetera. Lo and behold, all four of them failed miserably. Now, when I say fail, I mean they didn't close one deal. And, everybody's, of course, hair is on fire. And being the chief revenue officer, the board and everybody looks at me and go, what have you done? So the expensive lesson there for me was it is super important to look at the sales capability you need in the context of where you are in your journey. And what the mistake I made was to hire executors. Whereas the reality was that our product and product market fit in the way we delivered ourselves needed solution sellers, more inquisitive, more finding out, crafting solutions. Now, those salespeople are not bad. In fact, they're magic. But they weren't fit for purpose for where I am in that space. So as the leadership in our technology companies, right, we get funding. The first thing we do is hire a VP of sales, right? And then we appoint salespeople, and then we sell, and then we learn, oh my goodness, things are breaking. We have to be really sure that we have the right tool. I call myself a tool, in place for the place we are. So the moment I abandoned that, I found jobs for all of them, and I hired for inquisitiveness. Young people that's inquisitive, that really want to understand the client problem, we will fly. So as Eric pointed out, right, it's procedural. Do you have the right, you can run those tests. If many are doing it right and they're successful, it's certain leading indicators, etc. But on a meta level, if we look at our revenue generation capability, as leaders, we have to make sure we don't set the people up we hire for failure. And they wouldn't know that because they don't know your company. You need to make sure you interview for the right skills and then set them up for something they can do. And then, of course, all the things that Eric mentioned is super important with regards to measuring and training them and all that kind of stuff. But just the scars on my back of getting that wrong. And once you scale a sales team and you have to pull it back, by golly, it's painful because you're missing targets and your board is on you every day, and everybody is nervous and all that kind of stuff. It's a really painful place to be. So make sure you're ready for scaling with the right kind of people. Is certainly the advice I give you from the trenches because I got it wrong horribly. So yeah.
Well said.
Sometimes the best lessons. What if you only have one salesperson? And what if as a founder you are that salesperson? How do you know if you're a bad salesperson or if you maybe have a bad process?
Yeah. I think if you only have one salesperson, you got to surround yourself with people that can help you with this kind of, especially founders up front, right? They say, I'm not a salesperson, right? Well, no, you are. Okay, you may not think of yourself as a professional salesperson, but you are. And there's a methodology that founders can use that can take care of all the anxiety they have with being this salesperson, right? And you don't have to be perfect. You need to be authentic. Because you're the one, as the single salesperson up front, that understands your product back, that got the most passion, that want to understand your customer. There will never be a better salesperson than you. The question is, how do we take that out and make it repeatable? Then the challenge comes. But founders are generally magic at it. They just don't want to do it because they think they're not a professional salesperson. So.
Yes. I do find I enjoy them. They fill my bucket.
Right.
Right. So as long as they go well. As long as there's some kind of takeaway and at least help somebody. Oh, here we go. Hey, Stephanie, why don't you join? I was actually gonna. I recognized several fractional experts that have joined us here and a couple of things. So jump in, Stephanie. Jump in. Ask your question. I don't want to ask it for you. You'll ask it better.
Well, hello. Yes, so I'm just starting as a fractional. So I think because as you were describing, I still don't feel myself as a salesperson yet, but with a growth mindset, I'll get there.
Right.
So I was in corporate for 23 years. And so now moving a month and a half ago into this entrepreneur journey. So I keep thinking I'm finding my entrepreneur chromosome and it might be in my toe. I'll get there. but everything is new. So I'm trying to build, like, obviously trying to clarify and go deeper into what is my niche clients and who should I try. And everything is new on the leads, but I found very interesting on your leaking bucket phrase. So how do I know I have a leaking bucket? What would you think would be your recommendations? And again, trying to become fractional. So that's also kind of a client I'm trying to reach. So what would you recommend?
In the HR space, I'm not sure if you guys caught that.
Yeah.
HR people space.
Yeah.
Well, I'm trying to support AI transformations, connecting strategy, people, and technology. So I'm not necessarily kind of positioning myself as only as a CHRO. Obviously, I can help on that space, but and the AI piece, but I don't want to get into the payroll things only. Yeah. I really want to help. And again, my niche is trying to support those mid-sized organizations, connecting and the technology with the human space. That I think that with the AI, as you were saying, because it's not everything about technology. It's really how do we enable the transformation around that.
Right.
Eric, you're the leaky bucket guy.
Well,
I'm kidding. I'm happy to go if you
no,
want.
you go, Gus, and then I'll
Okay.
chime in as well. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, sorry, I'm being naughty, Eric.
No.
But yeah, so again, I think what I'll do is just give a story around this, right? And I think, again, I'm a bit contrarian, right? Leaky buckets are not necessarily a bad thing, okay? And they occur in every single startup. In fact, they occur in Oracle. So even if you're a mega corporation, they have people that look after these kind of things, right? And they solve it with a lot of tools because they've got a lot of money. But let's look at us as solopreneurs or, early stage people and how we think about it, right? A couple of things I found just from having to face these problems that could be leading indicators or heuristics for your leaky bucket or maybe churn or something like that, right? Are you crystal clear around your ideal customer persona? Are you crystal clear around your ideal buyer persona? Do you know what that is? And does the team around you know what that is? It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be right. That's the thing about founders, right? We have the luxury of being wrong because we just want to test something and see what breaks and then move to the next thing, right? So fail fast, the whole mentality that Eric Ries and Steve Blank gave us in their seminal works. We want to fail fast. So are we talking to the ICP? Again, this plus customer with the churn and the leaky bucket, when I analyze this pipeline, more than 60% of the conversations is not with his ideal customer persona. In fact, that is such a ramification on his business because these customers are asking them for something they're building into the platform. So now, not only do they have a leaky bucket, but they're also getting their platform roadmap, their product roadmap. They're giving it confusing signals. And that slows you down as well, right? You need to know that your signals are coming from the right people you're talking about. Now, how do you know that you have a leaky bucket? The normal heuristics, right? So you sign up somebody and they leave you in a month. But a really great indicator of leaky bucket that I have found that I use as a metric is propensity to spend. So when you work with your ICP and your IBP up front, right? What is their propensity to spend money with you? So have they told you are too expensive? Have they just agreed to your price, by the way? Now I'm getting in the weeds a little bit with this because leaky bucket have so many originators. But if you want general views to view it, make sure you're talking to the right customer, to the right buyer. Make sure you understand why they're spending money with you, their propensity to spend. Put all of that stuff into a bucket, and then see if they leave you. You can do the sort of the audit trace back to where you started talking to them, so you can educate everybody around what is happening there. And if you've data driven and you record in the teams that I don't let anybody from the team talk to a customer unless it's recorded.
Yep.
So it may be that the customer says no, they're from California, they go, you're not going to record me, and that's fine. But generally other states in the US allow for that conversation for learning purposes, etc., etc. Because when you have a leaky bucket and a churn problem, you cannot afford to deal with interpretations. You can't afford for the salesperson to tell you, I think this is what happened. No, you need the client's actual words. So we can use all these wonderful tools that we got, and we can prompt engineer the living daylights out of it, and we get the answers back, right? So I'm sorry, I'm throwing a lot at you, but
I'm
there's
taking notes. I'm
quite
taking
a
notes.
few things that you can consider as part of this methodology. And the fun of it is, if you have your tool chain in place, you will get those signals immediately, and you won't work with corrupt signals, because that's your biggest danger in a churn environment, is that you work with corrupt signals.
Yeah.
So
Eric,
before
please
you
disagree with
go,
me, but
No,
that's how I see the world. So
I
yeah.
think you're
I want to
absolutely
add one
spot on.
more thing
Yeah.
before you go, Eric.
Yeah, yeah.
So, because we were thinking about talking about how to handle follow-up without seem like as a founder, it always feels like I'm bugging people, but that's probably what Stephanie sees as well, is a lack of feedback from people that just kind of ghost you, right? So if you don't know why they're not getting back to you,
Yeah.
what even their objection was, that can be an extremely challenging thing. So if you could sprinkle that, a little bit of that in there too with your answer, I think that could be really helpful.
Yeah, yeah. I'll try to weave that in there in some capacity. But Gus, I couldn't agree with you more. I think having a firm foundation on the ICP, and really that dynamic map of who are your buyers, why are they buying, et cetera, right? And then I think above and beyond that is whether you're using or have your own, whether it's a sales playbook or a framework or a methodology, I think understanding, yeah, again, understood. You're right at the beginning there, so that's completely fine. But and there's many out there to pick from. But I think adhering to that, and whether you're a solopreneur or you have a team or you grow to have a team, whatever the case may be, ensuring that there is clarity around that. And again, to Gus's point, is are those sales folks, are you adhering to every step of that process to understand, again, are there gaps in that process? And I also think not every client and prospect that you speak with will be your buyer, right? There are so many, even though they might fit that build, that ICP. Yes, you've defined that crystal clear. It still not be might be the right time, the right moment, the budget, the need. There's a million different things in the works there that could change at a moment's notice. Um, and I think Katie, just quickly going back to your point, is it is very difficult, right? When you get that individual or company that has ghosted you and you don't have a line of sight into, well, why? What had happened? Did I miss something? Did I thought things were progressing nicely? I think, and I've tried several things throughout my career, whether it's breakup emails or things of that nature, and just trying to get a bite, right? And having that authenticity, that human to human connection, and framing it in the sense that, look, we're always trying to do better for the clients that we represent, the partners that we work with. Can you just shed a little bit of light? I don't want to take up any more of your time, but I really do want to analyze and understand either why we were not selected, why you didn't choose us. And I would say that's a 50-50 shot in terms of if they're willing to give you that time or that line of sight. But it is worth trying, I think.
Eddie, can I throw a comment on top of
Definitely.
what Eric has
Definitely.
said?
Yeah, we got a couple minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the ghosting thing, it's a perennial problem in sales teams and startups and all that kind of stuff. And as Eric said, send breakup emails, those don't work, right? If people don't talk to you, they don't talk to you. There's a very slight chance that you will get somebody back that's busy ghosting you. Now, for me, the fascination with that started out as being, why are they doing that? And I landed on this concept of the buyer journey, the buyer map. So us as salespeople we know the product, we're going to sell you, you're going to move to the next stage, right? Even the CRM tools told us that your sales process is linear. Well, guess what? It's not linear anymore. We're living in the 21st century. And understanding your ideal customer's buyer journey. Where are they when you meet them? Because it may be totally normal for them to ghost you for 3 months because they are just kicking the tires.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or they are just evaluating and they want to do self-evaluation, right? How do we enable self-evaluation for our customers, right? They don't want to talk to a salesperson. So how do I keep them busy and make sure how can I measure that? There's wonderful tools. Your product can do it. The website can do it. We want to give them stuff to self-evaluate. Or are they serious and you're just losing the deal here because they're scared of you? They want to go for best of breed or whatever the situation is, right? But in those initial engagements, put in the questions to understand where the customer is.
Yeah.
The prospect. Where are they in their buyer journey? Because that will explain a lot of behavior for you as you go through this. And the other thing, which is slightly contrarian, but you know me, that's what I do. Sometimes we get ghosted because we're lazy. Because we rocked up at meetings and we just pitched. We didn't do the enough due diligence. We didn't want to understand our customer enough. We just wanted to pitch. And then the customer will go, whatever. And then, hey, this was a great meeting, everybody backslapping. And of course, I'm going to get back to you, and they never do. Yep. Right? You need to over-prepare for those meetings, and you need to put questions in there that allow you to understand where they are and don't be lazy. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way, but time with your customer is valuable. You need to use every second of it to learn as much as you can and maximize it. That's what professional salespeople, that's what Eric do on a daily basis. And, that gives you your competitive edge as well. Sorry, Katie, I've gone on too long, but this is such an important part of the process that we have to pay attention to it as founders, for sure. Yeah.
Critical, asking where they are and understanding if they're actually ready to buy. Yep. Huge. Well said. Well, we're out of time, but this is going to be recorded, sent out to everyone. It'll also be on our LinkedIn. We have a YouTube channel. Please follow. But thank you so much for coming. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Summit, if you're still here, for asking and participating with us today, asking those really great questions. And I've included the links to both Eric and Gus's storefronts on Knex, where you can book a free 30-minute consult, and we'll give you $500 off if you actually book them or another. But also just feel free to reach out to me with any needs, Katie at knex.pro, knex.pro. But thank you so much for your time. It was a really great discussion. Really appreciate it. All right.
Thank you.
Wonderful.